Hi there and welcome. So good to have you with me today. Oops. No, we're good there. All right, let's just do a quick check. Do we have good audio? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just do a raise hand or drop a comment in the chat box. We've got it set up for everybody to be able to chat, so that's great. Okay, looks good. Thank you so much. So here we are wanting to talk about what the irides can teach us about digestion. Just a reminder for everyone who watches this as the replay or wants to watch it again, you'll receive the replay link tomorrow. In addition to that, if you're watching it on the replay, please remember to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, and share, right? It'll be shared with you with a YouTube link. And it just really helps to make the videos more visible to a greater number of people. And I really appreciate your help with that. All righty. Let's roll forward here. Just a reminder that we are not diagnosing and we're not prescribing here. This information is for your education only, and you are responsible for whatever results you get from using this info. Quick introduction about myself, just in case you're new to me. My name is Judith Cobb. I am a master herbalist, a natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a level 3 certified iridologist and level 3 certified iridology instructor. I think last time I checked, there were only 10 level 3 iridology instructors in the world so far. So yeah, so that's pretty impressive. They've just started giving out badges a few years ago. I've actually been a certified iridologist with IFA since 1993. I've been an iridologist and have been training since 1979. So I've got a lot under my belt. I've worked with a lot of clients, thousands of clients. I've written many books that were self-published, and I've also designed and taught many courses, including, of course, iridology courses. I'm a professional member of 2 nutrition organizations and 1 herb association. And what I love about being a professional member is I have to submit CEUs every year, right? I have to have proof that I am keeping my studies up to date and that I'm current. And so that's really a good thing, right? You don't want to just certify once and have it done and never have to keep up with anything. All right, you ready to dive in here? Fantastic. So today, since we're talking about the stomach, we need to understand a little bit about digestion. This, for all of you, should be a review. You should all have your anatomy and physiology course, your college level course, already under your belt. When we do iridology, we are looking not just at the iris, but we also look at the sclera. For today's purposes, though, we are only going to be looking at the iris because we don't have a lot of time. We are doing a real high level overview here. So we've got the mouth. Remember, this is where you have the enzymes to digest your carbohydrates. The food then goes down the esophagus into the stomach, which is where you should have the juices and the acids to digest proteins. That comes out of there into the small intestine. And remember that from the pancreatic duct, the common bile duct, we have from the pancreas secretions that neutralize that acid content, so that when the food is being released into the small intestine, the acidity is neutralized because the small intestines are alkaline. And the beginning of the small intestine, with the aid of bile, again, from that coming through that common bile duct, that's where we digest our fats. So that's your super quick review of digestion. We're actually not going to cover much with the intestines or the colon today. We're really focusing on the stomach. So we've got several indicators in the eyes that teach us about the stomach and digestive challenges. So we're going to just focus on a couple of those. We certainly aren't going to go into depth on all of them, but we will do a few of them today. This is the area right from the inner edge of the iris to this ring that teaches us about the small intestines, the stomach, small intestines, and large intestines. Now, it's really important to remember that there's no one marking that is a guarantee of anything, right? As we start to learn more and more about epigenetics, it's just so exciting to superimpose that over iridology, because the iris shows us what the genetic potentials are. And we know that with epigenetics, we can turn potentials on and off, right? And so when we look at an eye, we are simply seeing the inherent predisposition. So we have to have a conversation with the client. We have to understand what their symptoms are. We have to correlate that to the markers. And we have to also understand anatomy and physiology on a really deep level to understand how things connect. It's important to remember that people can have many digestive markers in their eyes, but they might have no symptoms. And that would be because they're already taking good care, or they're not old enough to have undone any of the good stuff their body wanted to do. Or we can also see that someone has no markings and they've got lots of symptoms. And in that case, they've earned the right to have those problems. More commonly, we see that we have markings and that there are at least inklings of symptoms, if not definite symptoms. Remember that a lot of what we see in the eyes, what we see in the eyes is genetic, and our symptoms have often a base in that. On a basic level, there are 3 specific indicators that teach us about digestion and about digestive predispositions. There's a whole lot more. And certainly there's a whole lot of them that interact that give us more information, but we're not going to dive into that. That's why you need your A&P. We do go into that in great detail in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. So today we're going to look at 2 specific digestive markers and one other marker that can give us some information about digestion. So this is the eye of a 17-year-old girl. And this first marking is sometimes a little hard to see without good magnification. So when we look at that inner edge of the iris, the edge that is right against that pupillary opening, we can see that it doesn't look nice and smooth. It looks really rough. It looks like someone took little scissors and snipped little bits out of the edge of that iris. That is called comb teeth. Comb teeth. Now, I've never seen comb teeth with my handheld equipment, which is like an 8x magnifying glass, but certainly when I shoot with my 24 megapixel camera, put it up on a computer screen, we can see these clearly. This is a marking that not everybody has. A lot of people have it, but it certainly is not 100%. If this marking is there, it is inherent. There's nothing we can do to get rid of it. You're not going to cleanse, fast, change your diet, take supplements. There's nothing that's actually going to get rid of that marking. I want you to think back to your anatomy and physiology training. I want you to think about, what do you know about how the stomach lining is structured? What different secretions does it produce? What are the different roles of those secretions? If the stomach lining is indeed compromised, what kinds of symptoms might you see? So those are the kinds of questions iridologists need to ask themselves when they're doing an iris assessment. So if you've got a client coming in with stomach symptoms and you see this kind of an edge to that iris, you need to be asking questions and diving deep into what stomach secretions should there be? What should they be doing? What macros do they digest? What would be the symptoms if those enzymes and juices were not digesting those macros properly, right? This is where your anatomy and physiology comes in. We really need to have an understanding of the body. So let's do that quick review of the stomach wall. Okay, so this is the outside of the stomach. This is the inside. So this is the edge that holds or that touches the food, right? So then when we take one of these little gastric sections, gastric pits, we've got this. It breaks down to this. This is a single villi. And you'll notice that down here we secrete hydrochloric acid. We've got little green bits that are secreting hydrochloric acid. We've got gastrin. We've got pepsinogen. And we've got mucus, right? And you'll remember that we need mucus in the stomach to have a protective barrier, because when these chemicals that our body creates as enzymes and as digestive juices are released into the stomach, well, that stomach wall is only protein. And everything that's being made down here is designed to break down protein. So if we didn't have that mucus barrier, we would be digesting our own stomachs. Oh, that's called an ulcer, right? Okay. So we need to know this because it helps us to understand our client's situation more deeply. This is a fellow in his late 60s, and you can see that he also has comb teeth. Now, do you remember, and I want a show of hands on here, how many of you remember learning in your anatomy classes that by the age of 35, we start losing our stomach acids, and by the time we're 55, we're down by half? Do you remember hearing that? If you remember hearing that, I want to see you raise your hand. Oh my goodness, that's new to all of you? Oh my goodness. Okay, so there you have it. By the time we're 35, we start losing our secretions from our stomach. By the time we're 55, it's down by half. When we are looking at this, it says that genetically, this person's stomach lining has never been robust. Genetically, it was always just a little substandard, which means likely not able to well secrete the mucus and or the enzymes. Because if it's not secreting enough mucus to protect itself, it will not secrete enough enzymes and acids, because the body's smart like that. The body's going to go, hey, wait a minute, there's not enough acid protect or enough mucus protection there. If we secrete this acid, we're going to be in trouble, so we're just going to pull back, right? So what we need to be aware of then is if he is genetically like that, he's likely maybe never digested his proteins well, but now that he's in his mid-60s and is losing the ability to digest his proteins even more, what kinds of symptoms might we see? So I want to see an answer in the chat box. What kinds of symptoms do we see when someone is not digesting their proteins well? I'm going to give you a minute to type things into the chat box. Hopefully you've all found the chat box. Got it set so everybody can type in answers. I promise you, the more you interact with me in the chat box, the more information you'll get out of me. If I think everyone is falling asleep, then we'll just kind of keep this super surface. Indigestion and bloating. Those are really good indicators. Now, bloating can be carbohydrates. How do you know it's a protein problem? Floriana, that's a really good answer, but how do you know it's a protein problem from bloating? Specifically, what will we see with the bloating? Oh, I know I'm pushing, aren't I? I'm pushing you. This might be stuff you didn't even learn in anatomy class. It's the kind of stuff you'll learn in dynamic iridology, though. I'm going to let you sit with that question. I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to let you sit with that question. How would you know that bloating is from protein, problems digesting protein instead of carbohydrates? Here's another one. Again, we've got two things going on here. First off, we've got that uneven edge. We've actually got three things, but we're only going to talk about two of them. The uneven edge. Do you notice right here you see another edge where the texture of the iris tissues changes? Can you see this edge? If you can see this edge, give me the word edge in the chat box. Can you see this edge? Floriana, good. Thank you. Anybody else see this? Anyone else see this edge? That tells you, Lori says yes. Good job, Lori. Excellent. That tells you that genetically, again, the entire stomach is not genetically programmed to be really robust. And so it's another indication that this person likely is incapable of secreting an optimal amount of digestive acids. Female, mid-50s. So she's never had the predisposition towards secreting acids well, but she's now in her mid-50s. So she's pretty much guaranteed down by half, right? Pretty much guaranteed to be down by half. So when we see that, we know that we are going to see more digestive symptoms, particularly at the stomach level. And again, we're not going to dive deep into all of the different kinds of symptoms. That's for the dynamic iridology class. Now, this photo is not great. It's not really totally in focus, but you can still see that we've got a very definite edge here, and we've got an unevenness right in here. So even though it's not the best photo in town, we can see these things. And so our questions will be around digestion. They're probably coming in with digestive concerns. So I want to ask questions specifically. What kinds of symptoms do you have? Where do you feel it? Right? Because sometimes it's up high in the stomach area. Sometimes they'll talk about digestion and they're speaking more abdominally and it's more intestinal. So we want to make sure that we know what our client is talking about to make sure that we are coming at this from the right angle. Does that make sense? The more specific, no, let me rephrase that. We start with broad questions and we gradually narrow it down, right? I read a cute thing on some social media the other day. I don't remember which one it was. And it was about this, how as practitioners, we need to be very specific in our questions. And it was about an older woman who'd gone to the doctor with recurring ear infections. And the doctor asked, do you prefer bathing or showering? And the woman said, oh, I prefer bathing. And the doctor said, well, you'll probably have fewer ear infections if you shower. And she said, oh, but I have a shower every day. And then she said, you asked, what do I prefer? Not what do I do? Right? So specificity is really important when we bring it down. I like to start broad and let my client tell me everything they can. And then using that information, I can dive deep. From the eye itself, I cannot tell for sure that she's not secreting enough acid. It's highly unlikely she's secreting too much. But there may be other things in her body that could create the same kind of symptoms. And so I need to ask questions and I need to hear my client's story to understand which direction I need to go with this. Is this making sense? If this is making sense, give me a yes in the comments box. The eyes are genetic indicators. They show us inherent potential. They don't give us guarantees. Floriana, thank you, Floriana. Really appreciate that. Okay. This is a different type of an indicator that tells us there's an impact for digestion. So what do you know about someone who is having a sympathetic nervous system response? What is the effect in the body when someone is having a sympathetic nervous system response? Which body systems show what kind of changes? I want to see lots of information in that chat box. So if someone has been startled or they're very afraid of something, what does that sympathetic nervous system do in their body? Just going to let you type some things in. The fight or flight response, that's the broad answer. Good job, Floriana. Run, escape. Yes, Phyllis, really good. What happens to the digestive processes when we're in that fight or flight? Felice, absolutely, it stops. It just stops. It doesn't digest anything. Everything stops. It is so much more important that you run from the bear, that all of the circulation is now sent to the large muscles and to the heart. Your blood pressure goes up. We've got to get get the blood oxygenated faster. We've got to get some glycogen breaking down into glucose faster so that we can run really fast, right? So when someone is in that sympathetic response, their digestion is not going to be efficient. When we see an eye like this, where we have all of these tree rings going around and around and around, this is someone who really spends a lot of time in the sympathetic response. Often, not always, but often they'll have some anxiety or ADHD or things like that, but they spend a lot of time in that alert, alarmed response pattern, which means that we're going to have a negative impact on the digestion. So what kinds of symptoms might we see at the stomach level if someone is always responding to every little thing? What do you think? What are some symptoms you might see? You might see irritable bowel, so that's going down further than the stomach. Let's bring it right back up to the stomach, Lori. But that is a good comment. Let's just bring it back up to the stomach. What kind of stomach things might we see? Maybe heartburn. That would be more if they're more prone to having too much acid, though. Possibly, maybe some acid reflux. Yeah. Yeah. So heartburn, acid reflux could be it. If food is just sitting in the stomach, it's highly likely it's going to ferment. It's going to rot. We're going to see belching. We're going to see that air that's being generated by the food just sitting there, not fully digested, probably not enough digestive acids to do a lot with it. We're going to get a lot of gas production. We're going to see a lot of belching. Again, we might see the bloating. We might see the bloating to where their stomach as an organ is so stretched out of shape that they have abdominal pain or upper abdominal pain from that. Right. So really important that we recognize that it's not just the stomach zone that teaches us about digestion. There's other things. Even the colors in this eye teach us about organs that want to have an impact on the digestive processes. Do you know anybody who is always on edge, always just that little bit anxious, waiting for the next crisis? They're always functioning in crisis mode. Do you know anybody like that? If you do, watch their digestion. Watch for digestive symptoms with them. Because unless they've really learned to manage that, yeah. So this is the eye of a 4-year-old girl. And we see that she also has that ability to function in the sympathetic mode. She's also got that rough edge to that inner pupillary border. And so those suggest that inherently her digestion is not going to be strong. Now, when we took these photos, she was only 4 years old. That's brilliant. Her mother, I'd been working with her mother for several years, and her mom is very nutrition conscious. So this little girl has a really good diet. That doesn't mean she doesn't get an occasional treat, but she has a really, really good diet, cooked from scratch, mostly organic. And there's a lot of good things happening in the family as well. She's an only child because she was an IVF baby. And this is a case where the parents love her, really love her, but they don't spoil her. There are boundaries. She is expected to behave with a certain amount of decorum, right? And she's not allowed to misbehave. And by that, I don't mean she's abused in any way, but they're guiding her, they're teaching her. They're doing a brilliant job of parenting. I wish I'd been half as good as they're being, right? All of the things that they are doing with quality foods, an intact family life that is a good family life. There's no tension, there's no fighting, there's no arguing. It's peaceful, it's calm. Differences are settled in constructive ways rather than in aggressive ways. And so she's learning some really good patterns for how to manage her tendency towards stress. That's probably one of the best gifts that these parents could give this child, right? Teach her how to regulate when she's under stress so that she can protect whatever digestive capacity she has available, right? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a makes sense in the comments box. We need to remember that digestion is not just stomach, it's a stomach function, that is impacted by so many other body systems. This is a client. She's been a client of mine for 4 decades now. Seriously, she was one of my very first clients. And now she's in her mid-60s. My clients tend to come in for 4 or 5 or 6 appointments. They get feeling really good, then they disappear for a while. They're feeling fine. They don't need me, and I'm happy they're feeling fine. When they start to slip, when they get a little older, things shift, something else changes in their life, and they start to not feel as good, then they come back in, and we'll do 3 or 4 or 5 more appointments till they get them back on track. Then they disappear for a few more years. So on her most recent coming back, she was coming back because she's approximately 100 pounds overweight. She has type 2 diabetes, and she has reflux. And the problem with her reflux is that it feels like she's always, it's creating problems swallowing. She always feels like she's got mucus in her throat. She's always clearing her throat. So, and she can't move that mucus. It's there because the esophagus is being inflamed by the reflux, right? She actually does not have, she's not hyperacid, right? But anything coming up the esophagus, whether it's too acidic or too alkaline, is going to burn. Doctors don't bother to test that, and they just throw proton pump inhibitors at clients. When we look at her stomach, we see we've got that bit of a rough edge, right? Got a bit of roughness there. So we know that she probably doesn't secrete acid well, never has, never will. And so what we had to do with her was the doctor had given her a proton pump inhibitor, a PPI. So she was experimenting with that and finding it wasn't doing anything at all. Now, I can't tell a client to stop a medication. I did plant a seed, and I said, I wonder what would happen if you were to stop the medication. Now, hear me clearly. I'm not telling you to stop it because your doctor gave it to you as a prescription, but I tend to like to experiment with things like this. So what would happen if you stopped that and took something to help you digest protein better? And she was willing to give that a try, which was great because, a proton pump inhibitor, if you take it for too long, it begins to weaken your bones, right? That's not a good thing. Not when you're in your 60s. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing at any time, but especially not in your 60s. So we gave her a digestive supplement to help her break her proteins down. We started really low, and she didn't see any benefit from taking one with each meal. We gradually increased it, gradually, till we hit a sweet spot where she said, wow, this is what I felt like when I was much younger. My throat is clear. I can swallow again. I feel like I'm actually digesting my proteins again. So we were very, very pleased to see that she was getting results. Now, it's important to remember that what we see here is inherent, it's genetic. Taking something to help with digestion is not going to change what we see in her eyes, but it is going to change the symptoms, right? I don't care if I change anything in the eyes. My clients, I've had clients that were new to me say, well, how will I know if it's working if I don't see a change in my eyes? Well, you didn't come to me to get a change in your eyes. You came to me to have a problem resolved. And the problem was digestion or menstrual pain or migraine headaches or whatever. So we're going to watch for that symptom to go away. Oh, that works, right? So there's so much more I can teach you about digestion and the irides. There's more markings. There's more organ interactions. There's more about the colors and the placement of the colors in the eye. That we'll all save for the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. So I love what Dr. Bernard Jensen said. Of course, he's the father of iridology. We've come a long way since Dr. J. There's been so much research since then that we've moved forward from what he used to teach, but it doesn't negate his wisdom in the ways of health. It really doesn't. This information here, what you see on the screen, walk or after your meal, sit a while, then walk a mile. Such good practice. Such good practice, especially for those who are sympathetic dominant, right? But it's really a good support for everyone who has digestive symptoms. So with that, when we are looking at iridology. Some health professionals want to learn it just because they do. And that's fabulous. It's great to be curious. It's great to add skills to your tool set. Most of them want to learn it because they understand that when they learn it the right way, when they learn it the most effective way, it'll help them to assess their clients more quickly. It'll help them to be more accurate in their work. It'll help them to create better and faster rapport. And it will eliminate the need for intake forms. You still do a release form, but you don't need to give your client a huge questionnaire. The next Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course is starting September 11th. And it's from 12 o'clock till 2:30 p.m. And I'm going to give you a few more details so that really makes more sense. Now, you're going to see that link on the computer screen. I'm going to actually copy it and paste it down in the chat box. There you go. One of the things that really makes Dynamic Iridology program stand out from others that you've seen is that you actually have to speak with me to enroll. I want to speak with you to make sure this program is a good fit, that you've got the college level anatomy and physiology, that this program is what you are looking for, that it's going to meet your needs. If it's not, then I don't want your tuition, right? I don't want to take your money under false pretenses. If it's going to meet your needs, then I absolutely will offer you the opportunity to enroll. The Dynamic Iridology Assessment System is the only online, taught live, online, mentored course, fully mentored course for RNs, NPs, functional medicine practitioners. Think of these as people who've got a college level anatomy and physiology course under their belt, who are working with clients or want to work with clients, but they want to get their assessments with their clients done while they are with their client, not in unpaid program report writing overtime. Overtime is not beneficial for anyone. When we create our clients while we're with the client, it increases client retention because we're laser focused. We're giving our clients what they need to know, not a whole bunch of other stuff. And as you've seen, like I've got clients that have been with me for 40 to 45 years now. Long-term retention is really beneficial for business, right? Do you agree with me that if you don't have to keep advertising to find new clients, that's a good thing? If your clients love you so much that they remember you and come back to you when they need you and they tell their friends about you, it's all a good thing. So if you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you want to learn how different markers work together, like those tree rings we saw, how that influences digestion, for instance, right? If you want long-term support while you're learning iridology and afterwards, then we need to chat. I'm going to see if I can make this play. Oh, maybe I can. Two of my students said this.
Yes, it's been so amazing and it's flown by, honestly.
Can you hear this?
It has flown by. I'm like, wow. I mean, yeah, I'm very grateful and I feel like this is exactly what I was seeking, but more. It was more than what I thought that I was going to receive. I'll say that, most definitely.
I have to second that, Paige. I think we've definitely gotten far more than what we thought we were going to, but it's ticked all the boxes as far as I'm concerned because I look holistically. I'm very thankful that I'm part of another network now that thinks holistically. It's been wonderful. Fridays are always the day I look forward to being able to catch up and touch back into the health side of things. So this is a really nice way just to re-enlighten my brain. So I look forward to this being the start of a wonderful journey together.
Yes, yes.
I hope you were able to hear that video. It's the first time I've ever tried to play a video in a webinar, so hopefully that worked. Yeah, hopefully that worked. Okay, so what was it that was more than they expected? Well, let's look at this. 20 weekly classes. We meet once a week for, it's actually about 2.5 hours per class. Now, interactive webinars, that web classes that are designed to give the students opportunities to ask questions, have discussions, for us to take side trips. In these classes, I share teach not only the iridology, but I also teach from my experience background as a herbalist and a nutritionist. So that if you've got a herbal or nutrition or a flower essence or an aromatherapy background, the purpose here is to help you integrate your other tools to use with iridology so that you understand how to use this in a clinical setting. Each and every class is recorded and stored on your student site for playback on demand. Life happens. Maybe you have to miss a class once in a while, right? And I've had students who were in such different time zones that the class was at 2 a.m. Well, they weren't going to get up for class. So they did the entire course with the recordings, and then they got their feedback. We're going to talk about how they got feedback in a minute through some other channels. The recordings are there for you to review, whether you missed the class or not. They're there to help you reinforce what you need and what you want to make sure you've got it clear. Now, we've also got group mentoring via webinar twice each month. We call these office hours. So any of my students, past, present, and students who have graduated, students who are certified, students who are still in process, we've got 2 live webinars where students can come in. They can present cases they're working on and get feedback. They can ask for clarification on things that maybe they forgot to ask in class, or maybe they finished their classes and they've just come up with a question of, oh my goodness, I really don't understand this. This is a great way to get it clarified. Great place to also ask business building questions. How do you market your iridology business? How do you incorporate it into your consultations, into your client sessions? How do you do trade shows to get people interested in this? Lots of things we talk about, but they're totally student-led. So students bring the questions, and I and students who have experience provide answers. It's a community setting. Your textbook, 225 pages, downloadable. I give my students permission to print up a copy for themselves, but certainly to download it. It's totally hyperlinked. If you've got some of those programs, you can make your notes in the side and you can do all kinds of good things with it, right? 45 pages of cheat sheets. Most teachers make you buy a separate textbook, and they're not inexpensive. 45 pages of cheat sheets. These are study notes, or they're your quick reference guide, so that when you're with a client and you're thinking, I know this, and you just want to look things up quick. What does this marking mean? What are questions I would ask? What are some interactions? What are some things I might consider recommending? What are the symptoms I might see with this? It's all in this 45 pages of cheat sheets. I also limit my class sizes to no more than 10 students. And I do that specifically because I want all of my students to feel very comfortable asking questions, and I want there to be enough time in each class session for students to have all of their questions answered well, right? That is so important to me. I also include the one-on-one mentoring to prepare you for certification. Actually, I include more one-on-one mentoring than that. Students are invited, and I send out emails to remind them of this, to schedule up to 6 one-on-one mentoring sessions with me for us to talk about where you're at, where you're going, what are you struggling with, what do you need support on, are things going great? Fantastic, good to hear that. I don't know of any other teacher, iridology teacher, that invites the students to have up to 6 hours of personal time to go over where they're at, right? Your success is critical to me, right? If you are willing to invest the time and the energy to be in the classes, then I'm willing to invest time and energy to help you be successful. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, then pop back to that link that I posted just a bit earlier in the chat box and grab that link and schedule a time for us to talk. You're going to find a lot of iridology courses online, ranging from $69 US for a 6-hour course. How effective do you think that's going to be? To $3,300 US, but they don't include mentoring. They don't include support after the course is finished. And I've had students do those courses and then come to me and say, I can identify the markings, and I even passed the IPA certification exam. IPA is the International Iridology Practitioners Association, their certification exam, but I don't know how to use this. I don't know how the markings work together. I can't do an assessment in a clinical setting, right? And so we bring them in and we start them at ground zero and we rebuild what they've learned and help them make sense of it so that by the time they finish my course, they can do an iris assessment and create a program easily in under 30 minutes, more like 20 minutes, which means if you're doing a 1-hour appointment, you've got 40 minutes to have whatever other conversation you need with that client to help that client feel heard. So, so important. So, oh, just what this, Jade Brooks, this is what she said after doing my course. She said, this is the first iridology course, my first iridology course. However, in my CNHP course, we were given a 3-hour lesson on iridology in a nutshell. That lecture and the study material left me more confused than before I knew anything at all. Judith's DIAS program has been an incredible experience, and we are just halfway through the program. Pretty good for only being halfway through that. She's loving it. Her teaching materials are thorough and easy to follow. The charts are invaluable and so insightful. I left Western medicine a while ago in favor of natural health. I've been an RN for 22 years. Western medicine wasn't able to help me with my health, but iridology's helped me identify many of my health challenges. So she's only halfway through. She's not working with clients yet, but that is her goal. She really wants to go that way. She says, Judith is truly amazing and is my most favorite instructor out of all my many years of higher education. But what I really love here is that iridology helped her to figure out her own health challenges and to support her body, so that as she's moved away from being a registered nurse and moving towards establishing a holistic practice business, she's got the tools for that. So any last comments or questions? Just a reminder here again that the dynamic iridology assessment system is starting again on September 11th. And you need to chat with me if you want to have, if you want to find out more of the details, and if we want to talk about the possibility of enrolling, find out if it's really a good fit for you. Okay. Well, it looks like we're good. I'm not seeing anything else come in. Thank you so much for being with me for this last 40 minutes or so. I truly appreciate it. Remember, if you watch the replay, to like the video, leave a comment, share the video, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.